What a way to launch out into a season where the quality of our faith is immediately and nakedly on show in the inconsistency, or shall we say unconformity, of our behaviour when we're confronted by inequalities at home in human cultures. But then, as Jesus also said, there is nothing hidden that will not come to light. So worship is no place to hide. Holy ground is where you bring the difficult things. And for geologists, ground does not come much holier than where we are today. Our location is Siccar Point, where the great age of the earth began to be dizzyingly apparent in James Hutton's Unconformity. Here, rock from the ancient world comes face to face with other rock which is further in time from the first than we are from the dinosaurs. Siccar Point may be the most important geological site in the world, but only because here some human beings overcame prejudice to take note of what was staring them in the face. And I hope to start with a perfectly valid way to approach this standoff between Jesus and the foreign woman would be to allocate some roles. So Jesus, Son of Man, aka the heir of humanity, inherits the mantle of our responsibility for healing and therefore our guilt for the dysfunctional relationship of the global north with the earth and globally with the human victims or perhaps targets of injustice. The foreign woman then takes the role of the earth. She exhibits the lack of bitterness that's characteristic of nature's capacity for something like goodwill when given the chance to thrive, to heal, to rewild. Like her, the earth answers back. It gives us pause for thought in all our best intentions to honour those who stand to bring most to the community. Then with James we will recognise that it is to the earth and to the oppressed that honour is due for the good of all, rather than the concessionary charity of the celebrity for public relations advantage. And then there's also the deeply traditional bonus of witnessing what it might look like for Jesus to be carrying in himself the sin of humanity, taking it on, assuming it, in order to wrestle with our cherished abusive and preferential attitudes, our favoritism, our cronyism, our class exclusivism, old-style nationalism, and sexism. All of these demons which, without fail, afflict the earth because they afflict people. People whose impact the planet lacks the luxury of ignoring. And just as honouring the rich and wealthy risks our becoming their victim, so there is no hiding place sitting on the fence. To be cast out, evicted, demons have to be named, called out, owned up to. Even and especially from the position of the powerless, the Bible's first audience. We don't do that by denying, out of desperation to avoid offence, that demons of prejudice, complacency and denial are part of our own life, especially in the global north. Because we are free neither of prejudice nor environmental impact. But when these things are denied, evaded or minimised, they do the most harm. So do we end up as judges with evil thoughts rather than responsible healers? Colluding with twisted fairness, which ignores the stacked injustice of the outset rather than aiming at justice in the outcome. Value your neighbour as much as you value yourself. That is a Bible teaching which is alien to international dealings amongst nation states.
We have a world-beating system.
We prefer world-beating to world-healing. The continual need to beat the world is a sign of weakness. Because we continue to insist that we made the right decision at the right time and that plans are on track, even when they patently are not. Prejudice, of course, is prejudice, prejudging. It's lazily shirking that God-given responsibility of risk and decisions that are for us to make. Judgments that we shirk at our peril. James offers the bluntest ultimatum in the New Testament epistles, that faith not put into action is dead. And that prejudice, those oven-ready attitudes which claim authority, irrespective of evidence, those have no place in Christian faith. It's even more shocking that this letter is written so close in time to the community's saving experience of Christ's resurrection. And it's written to a Christian community which is already exhibiting a dysfunctional toxicity which, with a human population approaching 8 billion, leaches into the lifeblood of the planet. Reading this shock jock James, faith has no laurels to rest on, but it's shown in ongoing, urgent and active contribution to the health of whatever world you encounter. Everyone needs the gospel every day. It's a sustaining power, not a rubber stamp. This comes together here with one of the most controversial of all the stories of Jesus, in a time when our awareness of race and privilege is heightened to fever pitch. In the story, Jesus has concentrated his efforts on his own people, only to be confronted by the equally compelling needs of others. It sounds scarily like governments who see foreign aid as a waste rather than an investment in the home that we all share. And it's precisely when we hear the pain of the planet and wish it were not so, that we also become afraid that our own prejudice might be showing, that we condemn others rather than attend to what needs to change in us as well as in them. This year the G7 met without the least developed countries and the small and developing states. Pray God that these parties can come together in the court of COP in Glasgow in November. If there are answers, these will at worst involve, at best come from, the poor and the marginalised, including the earth. Would it be such a strange thing to impute honour to the poor? Perhaps in listening respectfully to the witness of the small island states at COP this November. Because that is the blessing which is enjoyed, you might say, by the poor and oppressed. The blessing that those oppressed by proxy enjoy as freak weather takes its toll. The knowledge and the insights, first of all, for what's heading for everyone else, without far-reaching change at every level. Their voice should be honoured and respected above those of the wealthy who imagine themselves secure. Though perhaps we've seen this year in environmental disasters afflicting the global north, the downside of favouritism. Favour the rich and secure ahead of the prophetic word of the suffering, and the mantle and perhaps the fate of judges with evil thoughts awaits. It's strangely under the guise of graciousness that we're ready to exempt broken people from pointing to healing, as if those who are hurting have no competence to contribute. Jesus does the opposite. Jesus includes the disadvantaged, the marginalised, the victims of prejudice. He doesn't impose cure without consultation. And so no one is exempt, neither the unjust nor the just. If there is a demon at large, both in the story from Mark and in our churches, it's this demon of internalised oppression. The illusion that the help that we can give ourselves is of no value, or that prayer is of no value. Now, as our friend the evil judge might say,
no respectable person is ever a racist. Not the slightest bit. And no one's so stupid as to be a climate denier.
Yet custom on autopilot bridles our thinking, vaccinating us against real and urgent change. So we see repentance as a threat rather than liberation. We see action as immoderate. We see hesitation and prejudice as wisdom, or sometimes, far worse, we see these as faith. But what about when we hear Jesus apparently saying that helping desperate people, or like maybe rescuing climate refugees, is like feeding dogs with the food earmarked for children? Because we know Jesus' agenda, like that of most who first hear it, was my own people first. Ouch, cliff edge. Or do we reach for those sad old Jesus didn't really mean that arguments? For some, the easiest way out of the difficult story of Jesus and the foreign woman is to stick on the top layer, to protect themselves by smearing Jesus with historical prejudice. For it is as a pious Jewish healer with a reputation for results that Jesus is approached by this desperate foreign mother. Some like to say that she had great faith in God, but all we hear of is her grovelling. She fell at his feet on behalf of her troubled daughter. Bible commentaries never tire of pointing out the cultural incongruousness of a lone woman aggravated by being, as it were, an unclean alien. And yet these historical geographical particularities, Galilean man, Syrophoenician woman, that does not muzzle the contemporary bite of this tale which is so craftily included as good news about Jesus the Messiah, the Son of God. Some see it this way: Jesus, embodying the respectable prejudice of his people, embodies in himself our need to learn and change, being taught by this woman who's qualified by her many disadvantages. She's one of the few in the New Testament who answer Jesus back and get away with it. And he commends her, and not only her daughter, but the visible aspect of Jesus' own outlook is seen to be made whole. That's a solid enough layer for some, though it's not the only rock to build on. And for those who are more desperate to protect Jesus than get to know him, it will be a stumbling block. Likewise, the small scope of the story. Despite the healing, surrounding society continues apparently unchanged, so please bear in mind, next time someone questions the point of your small environmental action, although the world is not globally sorted out, there's a whole lot of healing going on. In the story, it's not only of the woman's child, but also of herself. Healing with Jesus is no individual matter. It has ripples. Jesus' healings are never either passive or imposed without consent. They come about through relationship with the person or bubble or community concerned. Can we meet the earth in that way?